Is your house a mess like mine is? And has your desk got so much stuff on it you can't even find a space to put your coffee cup? Do you find you're constantly tidying instead of doing the job you should be doing? Welcome back to the My Slice of Life podcast, and today we're talking about something that's a huge problem for so many of us, and it's something which can affect our productivity in a big way. Today, friends, we're talking clutter. Whether it's a desk piled with papers, a digital inbox overflowing with unread emails, or a messy, cluttered home. Guilty. There's no doubt that clutter can weigh us down and make getting things done so much harder. So if you're feeling less productive lately, it might be time to clear the space around you. Now, psychologists and productivity experts, I love them, but they often refer to clutter as visual noise, and I actually think that makes sense. It just grabs our attention, whether it's at home or at work. Each item, it could be a pile of papers, a stack of books, laundry, letters, random knickknacks, you name it, but it's a distraction. And studies have shown that when our brain constantly sees clutter, it drains our mental energy and it makes it so much harder for us to actually focus. So to put this into perspective, now imagine walking into a room full of things scattered everywhere, right? Just clutter, clutter, clutter. Could even be my living room right now. But then picture a clean, organised space. Which one do you think you'd be able to work in? The messy room will naturally feel more stressful. And it's because clutter just overloads our visual cortex, that part of our brain responsible for processing what we see. And with less mental clarity, we tend to lose focus and our energy much quicker. There's been loads of studies done on this, and they found that clutter has a detrimental effect on our mental health. And some of you will not be surprised to hear that it does bother us women more than men. Women who view their home as cluttered, they've got higher cortisol levels. And that means higher stress. Not good, especially if you're perimenopausal. We've already got enough problems with high cortisol levels apparently. We're constantly living in this fight or flight mode. So clutter, mental note to self, is not making things any better. In fact, it's making it worse. And every item around us is another decision we have to make. Even if you're not consciously choosing, just seeing things can lead to what they call decision fatigue. You're constantly having to prioritise and deal with all this extra stuff, and it can become exhausting. You're constantly having to reevaluate and recheck and make decisions because there's just too much there for us to deal with. Did you know people in cluttered environments don't even sleep as well as those who have got organised homes or workspaces? Any areas where you are expected to work, be it home, office or what have you, if it's cluttered, it increases stress levels and it decreases our ability to focus. Quite simply, our brains get overwhelmed by all the distractions. And I say all this as someone who lives in a pretty cluttered home. And what's worse is, most of it's my fault. I think. I have boxes of things that need to go, and I'm going to be really honest here. I'm going to try and sell them. There. I've said it. Am I the only one, right, who is sick of hearing these folk on YouTube who say they get rid of, 60% of their stuff, 80% of their stuff, and we're supposed to believe they just gave it all away? Can you afford to do that? Because I know we can't. And yeah, we've donated a lot so far. But these boxes sit there with stuff in them which I'm confident I could get a couple of quid for. But that takes time, doesn't it? To take the photos, do the ads and so on. I'm still planning on doing it, so I can't just chuck it out. Sorry, I can't afford to just throw away 80% of our stuff. And a lot of the clutter here, it isn't really my stuff. It's old things, it's clothes that don't fit, toys, that aren't wanted, books, DVDs and so on and on. But I'm the one who deals with all that. And I'm the one with too many demands on my time, so the boxes sit a while longer. And yes, they do stress me out. I actually try to walk about half the time with blinkers on. I don't know if you do the same thing. You're walking around your room, you know where the problem spots are, so you just kind of put a blinker on and don't even look at it. Not good. Not a good idea. So we know clutter stresses us out. It overloads our brains. We can't focus, our sleep is affected, and so on. But clutter doesn't just mean physical stuff. It can also be digital or even mental. So let's break these down just a little more and see how they affect our productivity as well. Now, the first one I've talked a little about, that's physical clutter, probably the most obvious form. Stuff like your paperwork, extra furniture even, piles of laundry, or even just rubbish which no one has bothered to pick up. And while I've discussed some of the problems that clutter can cause us, it's, this physical clutter, it can lead to an actual physical barrier to productivity. According to growthbusiness.co.uk, the average person in the workplace loses up to 4.3 hours a week looking for papers. They also state that professional cleaners say if clutter was taken care of, their work would be reduced by 40%. That's huge. That means at home, if we deal with the clutter, our cleaning can be reduced by 40%. That's good news. I think that's quite motivating. And I'm seeing those kind of statistics on a lot of sites. We are losing days looking for things. I know I do it at home as well. I'll put things down. I lost a receipt a couple of days ago. I was needing it to find out, because I had to take something back, blah, blah, blah. I spent ages looking for the damn thing. We spend a lot of time looking for stuff in our piles of clutter. The next type of clutter I want to mention is digital clutter. Not something I've really thought much about until recently. And here I'm talking about all those unread emails, the desktop files and open tabs. And again, I am very guilty here. I just sorted out my desktop the other day and already I've got new files scattered all over it. I try to have my folders all set up. I try not to have too many, but I'm constantly downloading the things. Oh, there's a nice picture. Oh, there's a document. Oh, there's a recipe. I'm constantly doing it. And my email inbox is a nightmare. I sign up to all sorts of sites. Herbal remedies? Yes, please. Homeschool ideas? Oh, I'll have that. Healthy eating for 50-year-old women? Oh, tell me all. I sign up for them. Then there's all the gardening ones and on it goes. And they all email me. A lot. Then there's the ones trying to sell me some crap I must have thought looked good at some point, but now I don't even read their emails. Do I unsubscribe? No, I might miss something. And so digital clutter fills my space. And when I go online, I've got tab after tab open. Do you do that? A whole row of very specific pages, which I know I'll lose if I just save them into a folder. I know it slows down my laptop, and I know it's not the healthiest way to do things. But this is me being honest. I'm drowning in digital clutter. And I hadn't even noticed until I started researching for this episode. So are you the same with that one? Are you just keeping your head above the digital clutter waves? Or have you got this one sorted? Because if you have, I'd tip my hat to you. The last type of clutter I want to mention is mental clutter. This is when our minds are overloaded with too many thoughts, ideas and reminders, and it can be really hard to focus if your mind is constantly reminding you of all the things you still to do. And this is why I write lists. I know not everyone likes the idea, but for me, getting it out of my head is so helpful. And I'm a paper person. I need to be able to physically draw a line through when I've done the task. And I find it works for me. I know they say we get a wee dopamine hit, don't we, when we put our line through the task. I like that. Yes, maybe it is. My little dopamine hit. I'll take it. Don't take that away from me. But if you're finding you have a constant stream of jobs going through your head, maybe this would work for you. Make a list or get a planner. Give yourself a chance to organise your thoughts and ideas. I do find that one of the most helpful things that I do. Alright, so now we know, clutter will negatively impact our productivity. We know the different types of clutter to look out for. So what do we do about it? Well, I do like to offer practical tips on this podcast, so I found some for this because you might have this sorted, but I need help. So here's what I came up with to help with our physical, mental and digital spaces. The first one is start small. And I like this idea because let's face it, clutter is overwhelming. I'm not looking at a shelf, I'm seeing a whole house. I bet you do the same. You don't think, oh, that shelf is a little cluttered. You think, oh, that room's a disaster, but so's that one and so's that one. So no, we need to start small. That's the advice. Begin with a single drawer, a corner of your desk or even just your desktop icons on your computer, because trying to declutter everything at once, it just feels too overwhelming. So we're back to that breaking things down into smaller tasks, and that has come up a few times this season, so it really is something to take note of. This, you've got a big job to do, break it down into smaller, much more manageable tasks. The second idea is to adopt a one in, one out rule. So for every new item you bring into your space, you take one out. Bought a new dress? Well, take one old thing out your wardrobe. And this is to help maintain a balance and stop things from getting out of control. It's easy to say just don't buy anything, but I don't think that's very realistic, so one in, one out makes much more sense. So number 3 on the list is regular digital decluttering, and this is one I like the sound of because it really does sound doable. Set aside 15 minutes each week to clean out emails, organise the files and delete anything you don't need. I mean, that sounds like something we can do, doesn't it? Pick a day, pick a time and put it in your diary so it isn't forgotten about. And this is one I am going to do. I did make a start a few days ago, but I need to keep consistent with this one to stay on top of it. I did have a really good clear out, like I said, but is this consistency? Because I think, I do it once and I'm done. Obviously not. So that's a good wee reminder for me. 15 minutes a week. I can do that. I'm here anyway. I can do that. Now we come to my favourite rule, if I can put that in inverted commas, that I've come across doing this entire season. The 2-minute rule. If a task takes less than 2 minutes to do, just do it. Do it immediately. And this is another one that keeps coming up through the season. I really like it. And I've been doing it now for about a month. And it really helps. I've caught myself putting things down and actually stopping and thinking, just put it away properly. It'll take a minute. This has helped me keep certain areas under control, especially in the kitchen actually, which is where I've used this one the most. The 2-minute rule helps keep clutter under control by tackling those little small jobs before they snowball and become a nightmare, because we do not want any more of that. Next up is creating a system for all those loose papers. You need some sort of system for all those papers that come into your house, and I'm not too bad at this one. I've got a tray on the table I work at and eat at, and it's on one side, and I go through it on a pretty regular basis and file the things away. I actually do. I have a row of folders which are for things like bills and financial stuff, recipes, herbal information and so on, and gardening. I have a lot of folders on gardening. Oh, and craft. A lot of folders on craft stuff, patterns and things. But I can find exactly what I want, and I know where everything is. As I'm saying that, I'm starting to think that maybe I'm not as disorganised as I thought it was, because I do have some areas that work well. I just never realised that before. My wee filing system in the corner does definitely work. I still have a way to go with my decluttering, and by doing this podcast season, I am finding some ways which are helping me to deal with things a little better. I'm actually more motivated to deal with it. But once we have decluttered, how do we keep the clutter from creeping back? Have you thought of that? How do we actually get on top of this permanently? Well, I found there's a few tips to help us maintain a clutter-free space long term, because I did realise that if I finally get on top of this, I'm going to need some sort of system to stay on top of it. And the first one I found is really simple. It's just a daily tidy up. This can be done in a couple of ways. At work, for example, spend 5 minutes at the end of the day to organise your workspace. When I worked in a hospital, I actually, thinking back, I did actually clear my desk space every single day, and I hadn't thought of that. I put everything away, so when I came in the next day, it was basically a diary and a pen sitting right there. I was ready. So yes, organise your workspace. And if you're like me and you're at home pretty much all the time, things like putting the dishes away before you go to bed, making sure there's no clothes or just rubbish lying around, just that 5 or 10 minutes can make all the difference. And again, this is another one, I've been trying to get into that habit of it. I'm not quite there yet, because sometimes I'm just so tired I just stumble up to bed. But I'm going to try that. 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the day, quick tidy up. So at least I don't have as much to deal with tomorrow. This tomorrow Sharon will be very grateful for the today Sharon for doing that 5 or 10 minutes to clean up a little bit. What about a weekly declutter and review session? Spending a few minutes every week to declutter and review your space. I think that could be helpful. Remember, this is after the main decluttering, so this is about maintenance, making sure everything stays on the rails and we do not end up back at square one. It's a time to clear out what you don't need and get ready for the week ahead. We should be making this a regular thing from now on. So once we've actually got on top of the clutter, we have this weekly session where we just a quick scan, what needs to be taken care of, am I staying on top of the decluttering, that kind of thing, so it doesn't build up again. And the last long-term tip I want to mention is being mindful of purchases and even downloads. We need to be more aware of what comes into our space. Talking to myself here again, folks, as I know I can be a real impulse buyer. I'm trying to stop it, I really am, and by being more aware of what I'm bringing in, it will help prevent clutter from building up again once I get on top of it. So the next time you're out shopping or surfing around online, ask yourself, and I'll be asking myself, do you really need it? Not so much when you've got a list, if you're going around the shop, or even online and you've got your list, you're working your way through it. It's these impulse buys that add up. So before we grab that, that looks nice, I could make use of that, I'm sure I could do something with this. Stop. Think. Do you really need it? I am taking note of that one. I promise. So to wrap up this episode, I have a few takeaway thoughts for you. Remember that clutter isn't just a physical problem, it can be a digital and a mental one too. And reducing clutter can enhance your focus, boost your efficiency, create a space that inspires productivity rather than drains it. Start small, be consistent, and make a commitment to keep things organised. What have you got to lose, really? What have you got to lose? Stress, poor sleep, distraction, depression, clouded thinking, and that's just for starters. Yeah, I think it's worth giving this one a go. And now I think I really need to go spend some time decluttering and getting those boxes dealt with once and for all. I need to stop putting it off. We did procrastination before. I have the tools. I have no excuse. I need to do it. If you have found today's episode helpful, please subscribe and share it with anyone who could benefit from a little more productivity in their lives. It's all these small changes, like reducing clutter, which can make such a big difference in our everyday lives. And I hope you'll join me next week when I'll be back with more ideas to help us all get productive. But until then, you take care of your wee self.